the more worrisome bit is that in India, child wasting and child stunting, these numbers are pretty high. We have some of the highest levels of child wasting and child stunting. In particular, say the wasting data shows a very sharp increase between, say, 2015-16 to 2021.
The latest edition of the Global Hunger Index report was released by concerned Worldwide and Welthungerhilfe organization on October 15th. The report ranked India 107th out of 121 countries that could be ranked and 136 countries that were assessed. Soon after, the Indian government responded by dismissing the report and claimed that it was done to taint India's image. So, in light of this recent development, what is India's position on the Global Hunger Index and why has the government reacted so sharply against the report?
Global Hunger Index is, it's an index that has been in the publication since 2006, and the basic idea behind the Global Hunger Index is to understand what's happening to the undernourishment levels, malnourishment levels of different countries. And in what it does is that instead of, commonly we talk about hunger being just a sense of discomfort when we don't eat something for long periods, but it goes beyond that. It's not just about starvation level of poverty or that kind of a thing. It looks at nutrition also, and predominantly looks at nutrition. It looks at how many people are getting food to eat and whether that food is nutritious or not. And to do this, it sort of looks at undernourishment, which is to say that, what is the proportion of population which is getting a certain calorific value every day, and then which comes closest to the notion of hunger that we have. And then it also looks at child stunting. So stunted child means that that child would have a lower height for their age. It also looks at child wasting, which is basically having lower weight for one's height. And it also looks at child mortality, so under 5 child mortality. And it compiles all these things together to give a score. And then those scores, so typically if you have a lower score, you're better off. And the Global Hunger Index basically keeps most of the developed countries out of it. These are basically developing countries. So, for example, in this year's index, they have looked at 136 countries, and for 15 of them, they couldn't get the data. So basically, that is the way it is in the Global Hunger Index. On the whole, the Global Hunger Index has found that, persistent attacks and climate change extremes, COVID pandemic has actually stagnated the reduction in so the hunger, as they call it, the composite in the composite sense. Global progress against hunger is at a near standstill. When you look at the data of how, say, the scores have fallen, you'll find sharp falls between, say, 2000 and 2007, and then from 2007 to 2014. But between 2014 and 2022, the fall is fairly less. It's sort of stagnant. Of course, in the top 16, 17 countries, the improvements are better. Say a country like China, which is otherwise developing, actually the hunger index scores are less than 5. That is why they are sort of in the top ranks, and they have improved quite dramatically. So yeah, but for most other countries, starvation levels or lack of nutrients, or malnourishment levels have actually worsened in many cases, and that picture is not very pretty. India also, there are, as I mentioned, 4 metrics that they sort of look at. So if we look at the 4 metrics, we'll find that as far as proportion of undernourished population is concerned, that number has gone up slightly between, say, 2015 to 2021. And the more worrisome bit is that in India, child wasting and child stunting, these numbers are pretty high. We have some of the highest levels of child wasting and child stunting. In particular, say the wasting data shows a very sharp increase between, say, 2015-16 to 2021. And India as a country has the maximum number of children suffering from wasting. The under 5 mortality number has improved, and that has been a secular improvement across the board. And if you looking at the charts here, it is worth looking at what is happening to Bangladesh, because that is one country which is neighboring and very similar in terms of culture and many other things, although not necessarily in the total population size, but in terms of population density. That economy has actually improved on many of these parameters, and quite considerably over the same period. So with the same shocks, it has somehow managed to improve across the board. So that's the findings on India. So the Indian government very quickly came out with rebuttals, saying, quite remarkably, saying that this represents a consistent effort to taint India's image as a nation which cannot provide food security and nutrition to its population. And more substantively, what the government said was two things. One, it questioned the methodology that Global Hunger Index uses. It says that this is an erroneous way to measure hunger, and then it goes into details about how maybe 3 of the 4 variables are actually related to children, and so how can you use it for the whole population? And similarly, it also alleges, although incorrectly, that the population, undernourished population, is based on some Gallup poll, which is not true actually. And the last point the government made is to highlight all the remarkable efforts it has made, truly, to provide additional free of cost food grains, even over and above the National Food Security Act, to 80 crores Indians since March 2020, when the COVID pandemic struck us. And also all the Anganwadi schemes, the monetary help that is given to women and children, to say that we are doing our best, and this report doesn't really reflect the truth. So if we were to take it in a reverse order, it helps to sort of look at what the government is saying when it says that it has ramped up all these food grains and all this help in the COVID pandemic. That is very true, and very possibly one could imagine that if this was not given, or if these, there was no National Food Security Act or Manrega or Anganwadi schemes or stuff, perhaps the impact on the population would have been even more severe. So there's no denying that the government has done a lot. But this is the point about the Global Hunger Index. It's not just about checking starvation deaths. This is not about starvation deaths per se. It goes beyond that. It looks at nutrition. So as I was talking to one of the professors who has been sort of tracking this for a very long time, Deepa Sinha from Ambedkar University, she said a very remarkable thing when she said that a kid typically requires a nutritious meal. He or she doesn't require a lot of rice and a lot of wheat, because that's not alone by that self. It's not going to serve the child's nutritional need. And that's very important to understand, that it's not just a quantity. Yes, you need certain amount of quantity, but you also need nutrition. The other thing that the government has said is that things like why are they using 3 parameters which are about child health? Now, 2 things to be said here. One, that these patterns have been set since 2006. These variables have been used repeatedly, so it's not something that has happened in the last 2 years. And secondly, there is, in academic literature, there's a very strong understanding how child nutrition is a very sensitive indicator of what is happening to overall health and nutrition of the population. So it is with reason that they actually track child nutrition, and also that when the nutrition levels are poor for children and those impediments happen like wasting or stunting, they are very difficult to improve or counter when a child grows into an adult. It's not possible to feed you better at the age of 30 to remove the problems that may have happened, or nutritional deficiency that may have taken hold when you were under 5. So that is why it's important. um, it has also said that the global hunger index did something based on a Gallup poll, but that is not actually true. In the FAQs available on the website, it says that all the data came from India. So it's not the global hunger index's a problem, as it were. And lastly, about the whole notion that India is, this whole index is about putting India, maligning India's name. That seems obviously fairly far-fetched, because this is an index that has been running for a very long time now, and there are so many countries involved. It's not targeted towards one country, and India has always been a laggard. It's not as if India has become a laggard now. India has always been a bit of a laggard in this, because we already have this massive problem. So that would be a leap to imagine that it's only because of it's only to target India.